It is showing me live here. Just check it out and then we can start.
Not yet, sir.
I think it is there. Just check it out again because it is there.
ജിതിന് വരുന്നുണ്ടോ അത്?
Yeah, it is there.
It's there, it's there, it's there,
Okay, great.
it's there.
Great.
It's there, it's there, it's there, it's
Great.
there, it's there.
Great. Great.
Yeah, it's there.
Okay.
It's
Now
there.
it's there.
Okay.
Sure. Okay. I'm going to just unmute you all so that there is no disturbance, because this is a
Okay.
lecture which only the host can or the co-host can unmute themselves, and or the other. Obviously, we'll be taking up all the queries later on. So if any are there, so let me share my screen first. Is the screen visible, Dr. Baiji?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, great. So good evening, friends. Welcome to today's webinar. So it just say is my second webinar in IDA Kerala, or say in any of the branches of IDA Kerala. I did a WhatsApp webinar in IDA Quantity branch in April end or so. Dr. Muhammad Arikat is a group member. He invited me for a practice management WhatsApp webinar. So, and Dr. Baiju I have known for more than 2 years now. So I remember when I started my paid WhatsApp group. I'm running 3 WhatsApp groups, but I started paid group in 2019. He was the first one to join in 2019. So thank you, Dr. Baiju, for a warm introduction. And my big thanks is due to Dr. Jolly, President, and Dr. Plato, Secretary, and all the EC team of IDEA Coordinator branch. So without much ado, let's start today's presentation. I just request you all to pay full attention to it, because this is a topic which will require your attention. And yes, obviously there are a lot many queries at the end. This is a full day session as such, customized consent, but again, due to the paucity of the time, whatever best I can cover in this time schedule, I'll be doing it. So let's start. So my all presentations always begin with thanking the Lord Almighty, who's given me much more than what I deserve. So this is my brief biodata. Dr. Baiju has already say briefly about it. What I really say cherish this qualification done from National Law School, Bangalore, Bengaluru, one of the topmost law schools of India. There are 5 national law schools in India. The Bangalore is the one which is the topmost, and really they grill you really hard, so that the concept is totally inside you. I did this in 2008 or 9, 8 and 9, of course. It's been 10, 11 years. And believe me, it was an eye opener for me. And I didn't know the, say, even the M of medical legal ethics or the C of consent. After that, only I inculcated both these things actually into my practice. Of course, there were other things as well. So we are all here for this webinar on medical legal aspects, just a brief introduction. And again, the importance of the customized consent form. I'll be giving you a few examples in between. So surely, so this is the abstract of that, what we are actually going to cover in the ethics principle. The basic aim for all to follow ethics is that it should be like a uniform code, and every dentist should wear the same. And but luckily or unluckily, it's not the way we presume it to be. So thank you, IDEA Coordinator branch, to invite me. So what exactly is ethics? Ethics is basically say lecture in moral science, if I may say so. It is about understanding the moral principles and theories in life. It is the differentiation between the right and the wrong, and that comes from within. Nobody needs to tell us these things, but these come from within us. So if we define ethics, it is a system or code of conduct and morals advocated by a particular individual or group in the society. So medical ethics is not different from it as such. So moral and ethics come from Greek and Latin words, Latin and Greek words, which basically means the custom, the tradition. It is Aristotle also called it as the, say, study of virtues and vices, the right and the wrongs. So if I say in the simplest style of Rancho from Three Idiots, it is actually a science of ideal human character, how we should behave and how say the distinct direction should be made between what is right and wrong, and the duty has to be followed, and good interpersonal relationships should be maintained with the patients. We all actually are say witnessing a sharp change in our say clinical life. At one point of time, doctors or dentists were considered equivalent to God. Then because at that time the society or the patient decided that yes, doctor is equivalent to God, and you decide what is the best for us. And then it became the shared decision making, that we both sit together, discuss the pros and the cons, and then it became by law the fully autonomous choice of the patient. You have to inform each and everything, but the final decision has to be by the patient. And even if the patient makes a wrong decision, you are there to rectify that, but in whatever way you can, so that the patient does not commit a mistake and choose a wrong treatment option. As I said, ethics, we all desire ethics to be like a uniform code, and all dentists should wear one, but unfortunately not. The biggest ethical challenge we all have is that colleagues will have say a poor knowledge in ethics all over the say India. We are not taught actually medical legal ethics at various points, but this is the way actually things have to go. And people like me are there to help out. Dr. Vishwas Puranik, Dr. Kumar Swami, there are many people who actually deliver lecture on these things, which actually go a long way in telling the society about the virtues and vices. So if we broadly say distinguish what is the code of ethics, there are say 6 or 7 principles, but the broad principles are the 5. It starts with beneficence. Beneficence means doing only good for the patient. The second is automatically non-maleficence. Non-maleficence means doing no harm to the patient. Then justice, treating patient unbiasedly, no discrimination to be made on the basis of caste, creed, sex, religion, or whatever economic style, whatever. Then patient autonomy. The patient's choice is to be respected in all the way. Then veracity, truth telling. We automatically need to inform the patient what, if any, wrong has been committed by us, and that is the patient's legal right as well. So these are the basic principles, along with the principle of fidelity, or we say the confidentiality. So these are the one which are the cornerstones of medical legal ethics. So autonomy basically says that patient has right to full information and self-determination. The patient will decide actually what to do, and it comes with the free and the informed consent. The consent word is not consent, it is actually informed consent. So free will and accord and intentional participation in the treatment, and respect and dignity has to be maintained. But the bottom line is that the patient should have the capacity to think, decide, and take action. Then non-maleficence, doing no harm. The sanctity of life, or in our case, teeth, is to be preserved. If any risks are there, the risk and benefit options, RBOs, the risk, benefit, and options are to be, say, explored in an equal manner. Then beneficence, always acting in the best interest of the patient and considering patient welfare as always paramount. Always weigh success against the risks, and it should be always that we should learn to say a no. That is where actually we commit a mistake. We forget to say a no in most of the times and come to patient demands. Then justice, as I said, it demands that we need to treat all people, all patients fairly, irrespective of any kind of discrimination, so that there is no injustice done to anyone. Then patient confidentiality, it should be upheld. You don't need to discuss. At this point of time, I'll mention a very brief point. We daily see so many cases being shared on WhatsApp groups, social media, Facebook, without the patient being blinded. The first thing is, did you ask the permission for the permission to publish photographs or the share the say external photographs especially? If not, you're committing a mistake. Even if the patient gives a consent, you still need to blind the patient. And that is primarily for the extraoral pics, where the patient's identities need to be disclosed. For the intraoral ones, you do not need to take any consent. You can share it as it is. because that does not disclose identity unless you want to do so. So there are other ways when you might have to disclose the identity ordered by the court of law or any say public health clause, or in sometimes the patient has done a say malpractice suit or say case on you, then you need to save yourself, then you need to disclose. Or sometimes when you need to refer to a fellow colleague, when the thing falls behind your ambit and you need to do it. And this principle is actually a covenant of trust factor, and we need to actually maintain confidentiality very clear unless ethically and legally required, as I mentioned a few scenarios, and disclosure still should not be beyond what is expected. So the honesty is still the best policy, truth telling, veracity is still the best policy. So the only thing is that Indian culture is not in such a way that actually demands us in a way. So the patient has the obligation to full and honest disclosure what we want. And then with the autonomous choice comes the say system of consent. A patient actually needs to know or have a full disclosure about the nature of intervention, the risks, benefits, options, as RBOs, we call them. What are the options? If the patient does not want to get it done, or if the patient wants to get it done, what are the say risks or benefits in both the cases? As I said, if the patient is willing to make a wrong choice, you have to identify. Just giving you a very common example. A patient comes to you with a missing tooth, a 3-6 area. What would be your say plan of action for missing tooth? What will you recommend? Of course, presuming that all the things are fine, the adjoining teeth, periodontal status, other status, restoration, there is no caries, nothing as such. Everything is perfectly fine, but the patient has just a missing 3-6. What will be your options? I'll discuss 2 points here. Number 1 point is, as going by the Supreme Court ruling 2008, you have to disclose the patient, or I'll put it other way. The patient has all the right to know about all the options, irrespective of in descending order, irrespective of whether he or she can afford it, or irrespective of whether you are offering it or not. Let me simplify. Even if the patient is a sweeper or a class 4, or say any caterer of you don't have to do any discretion, because going by the principle of justice, you will still advise the first option as implant, whether or not you are doing implant or not. This is the thing. Then comes the bridge, or then comes the say cast partial, whatever in the order as they are acceptable all over the world. And in the last say line, or the last option, you will have a conventional RPD, which we call as the gum stripper. The patient chooses a gum stripper. Let's suppose the adjoining teeth are fine. Just let the patient know very clearly that we will go by what you say, but what you have chosen is a wrong thing. Your adjoining teeth are fine, but the clasps, or the orthodontic, or not, sorry, the orthodontic, but the prosthodontic clasp which will be praised, the normal clasps, 21 gauge, 20 gauge, whatever your lab is using, will put undue pressure on the adjoining 7 and 5, leading to mobility, leading to periodontal problems, leading to bone loss, and leading to all those things. If still the patient wants to stick to that option, get a consent. That is where the principle of consent comes. You'll think, इस काम के लिए consent की क्या जरूरत है? छोटा सा तो काम है. RPT के लिए कौन consent लेता है? You don't have to wait in that sense. Wait in a sense that where you started from, what actually is the patient's complaint. Let's suppose you've given a say you don't take a consent, you don't do any documentation. The patient is the one from a good family, can afford it, but he still chooses a gum stripper. In spite of your all warnings, he goes ahead with that. And tomorrow, 6 months down the line, he feels mobility in his teeth. He goes in for a second, he forgets what you are told, because it was not in black and blue, I mean in written. He goes to another dentist. That this dentist gave me a this denture gum stripper or a conventional RPD. मेरे साथ वाले दांत हिल गए हैं. What to do then? And knowing all our colleagues, they add fuel to the fire. Most of the time, what will happen? The patient will say, try to come back to you in angry mode. Managing the angry patient, I did a webinar very recently. Or the patient will try to file a suit. What is the defense with you? That you gave all the options, but the patient chose the RPD. And that is the basis of today's informed consent session. I'll be coming to that. I'll take this point here and continue it whenever the scenario comes. So let's continue ahead. So what exactly is, say, part of informed consent? Disclosure, so that the patient can make an informed decision, understanding, comprehension, or he can comprehend what exactly is the information given to that. For that, he needs to be, say, above 18, voluntary, no pressure, no coercion, or say, or any kind of, say, forcing of the same to the patient. Then agreement, verbal or written, preferably written, to discuss intervention. So medical, say, ethics is based on the covenant of trust fact. And as a physician, as a healer, as a professional, it is our duty to follow the law of ethics. And just as veterinary is expected to love animals, a physician is loved to, say, made to love human life. We as dentists should have love for humanity, and of course, teeth as well. So I hope you get the base for the informed consent. So let's just begin with the consent part now, because that is going to take a longer duration. So it literally means I agree. And the word is not exactly consent. As I've already said, the word is informed consent. We are all used to witness one line. I hereby give consent to Dr. ABC or Dr. XYZ for my treatment, and I shall not hold him or her responsible for any damages that happen to my jaw and teeth. This is the consent we are used to. This is known as a blanket consent, totally invalid in the court of law. You'll be wondering what next then? Don't worry, I'm not going to divulge all the books here. So the concept of, just understand the concept of consent, then I'll be giving you a few more examples. The basic principle comes from respect for autonomy and the, say, patient's choice for self-determination. The only thing for behind consent is that no patient should be touched, in our case, teeth, beyond his permission or without his permission. So it was first introduced in practice in 1957. And like most people believe that consent is a event. Patient aaya, consent liya, sign kiya, and it is a process. It is not a one-time event. It has to go on. Informed consent means that you did not try to be a boss. You did not pressurize the patient to, say, indulge in what you wanted to do. The patient is an equal partner in crime. Not crime as such per se, but what I mean to equal bargaining partner. That the patient knew that what are the RBOs. These are the three words which will keep on repeating. They keep on repeating in my consent session: the risk, benefit, and the options. So informed consent basically transforms our God and say Bhakta relationship to a contract relationship. We, as I said, we have been living in those times when doctors were considered equivalent to God, but not right now. So literally consent means to agree. So the Indian Contract, we are bound by the Indian Contract Act also. It is a British Time Act. So many acts have been, say, revised by the Modi government, but still the 1872 Contract Act still remains. Its section 13 says 2 or more persons are said to consent when they agree on the same thing in the same sense. मैंने आपको समझाया, आपने वही समझा. This is the bottom line of consent. This is the perspective. I try to say, explain you, let's suppose a bridge. I'll prepare your teeth. The patient understands, you will remove my teeth. I'll reduce your teeth. The patient might understand, you will grind my teeth. Obviously, the meanings might be the same for prep, reduce, or grind. But yes, the patient needs to understand it in a way, in a proper way as well. So consent is basically an agreement or compliance or permission voluntarily given without any compulsion. And law says you can't use undue force, influence, mistake, fraud, because that will make all this agreement. This is basically अब हम लोग एक agreement में बंधने जा रहे हैं. It is not consent is like signing of the papers, and wherever the papers are signed, it is like a agreement only. So what are the four separate but quite interrelated elements of consent? I already told you. Let's look at them again. So voluntariness, it should be voluntary. Knowledge, the patient should be informed of every aspect. If you are not offering implants, your option for a missing tooth, let me take up that scenario for that 3-6 again. Your option for that 3-6 should not begin from a bridge. It should begin from an implant and conveying the patient that this is the best option, but I'm not doing it. My consultant is doing it. Or no, maybe I'm referring it to a colleague for this purpose. The patient needs to know it. Again, a scenario where 6 months down the line, you do a bridge, you don't inform the patient of the implant. 6 months down the line, somebody tells the patient of the implant, or maybe general awareness, people are Google informed these days, comes across an implant, because the selling point of implant is what? आपके आसपास वाले दांत ग्राइंड नहीं करने पड़ेंगे. In a crude language, आपके साथ वाले दांत घिसाने नहीं पड़ेंगे. The patient takes it another way. घिसाना, reduce करना is something which is not taken as very kindly. मेरा अच्छा वाला दांत छोटा कर दिया. This is the way. We might be preparing it. We might be preparing it in a miniature form, taking due consideration of all the parameters, of all the alignments. But the patient will not understand it unless we inform it. And you gave a bridge. The patient comes back after 6 months. Why was not the implant done? Then you start making all kind of excuses. वो महंगा था, I didn't have it, or the kit was not there, and whatever, any damn sort of excuse. The patient has the full right to go to court for this. And what will be your savior? Nothing. Now come back to that point where I had left. You gave up, the patient chosen a RPD, and you said vehemently कि yes, मैंने आपको बहुत समझाया था. I made you understand. You said नहीं, I'll go in for a gum stipple. The patient will say आपने मुझे उस तरह से नहीं समझाया था. He goes to court. Let's suppose he goes to court. What is the defense with you? You will say RPD के लिए कौन कोर्ट जाएगा? Understand the patient economics first. The patient might be well off, but he still chose a RPD. I have had many examples in my clinic. Many well off patients choosing a very inferior option. Maybe they don't value their teeth, maybe they don't value their life. It might be a great area, or maybe they are fearful. Maybe they are anxious. Maybe they are apprehensive of the injection that makes them choose a RPD. There may be multiple reasons. Get into the patient's psyche first. But once reality strikes, you have no defense. Why? Recently, we had a case. The documentation is the most important part. We all say record keeping, record keeping. What is the part of record keeping? Inculcated. So consent is your savior only. How record keeping is related to it, I'll come to that. So it should be voluntary. The patient should have complete knowledge of all the options available. Then capacity for decision making. Means he should not be inebriated or in a, say, under the influence of drugs, alcohol, or any kind of thing. Then competency. He should not be, say, a minor. He should be a major, above 18, to make a decision. So for a consent to be valid, all these four elements have to be present. Remember this. So what are the types of consent? Just have a brief introduction of what are the types of consent. Many colleagues, dentists I am talking about, of course, they take a consent even for checkup. As per law, you do not, I repeat, you do not need a consent for checkup. If somebody has walked in, it is automatically a permission to you to check him. You didn't go to the patient's home to fetch him. So an implied consent is already there to check the patient. In this not to touch the patient aspect goes out of the window clearly. So this is an implied general physical examination. Of course, we do not say indulge in any kind of, say, genital examination, rectal, vaginal examination, or any inner parts examination. For that, you need to have an express consent. Usually physicians, we don't need to. But if a dentist is injecting something, exposing the body part, you need to take a consent. That is a very simple. Then express consent can be written or oral. You need to tell the patient, and even if there is no material risk, you still have to go with the consent. It is actually the informed consent and the best or the ideal form of consent. So informed means the nature of their condition, the nature of the proposed treatment, the benefits of the proposed treatments, the risks of the proposed treatment, the available alternatives or options, the benefit and risks. वर्ड तीन रहेंगे वही RBO, risks, benefits, alternatives or options. These are the three things which will play an important role in, say, consent part. Remember, there is a very thin line to choose between a treatment part, and the courts accept this. They believe that medical science or dental science is not an exact science, and that you are not supposed to follow. Let's suppose I have had this condition. Obviously, consent has no role in that. But say I had this case in 2010 or 11. One of my very old patients came to me for a root canal of an anterior. I was doing a manual root canal at that time. Of course, even if doing a rotary, I still prefer a manual root canal in an anterior, in a central incisor, even till date. So I did a root canal, fully filled, up to my satisfaction. And the patient had some other problem in the adjoining teeth 6 months down the line. I was away for a conference at that time. So the patient went to another dentist. Obviously, the dentist took an X-ray, but that good colleague of mine just sowed a seed of doubt in the patient's mind. इसमें तो रोटरी रूट कनाल करनी चाहिए थी, आपके तो मैनुअल कर दी उन्होंने. That you needed to do a rotary root canal in the central incisor, but your dentist did a manual root canal. And believe me or not, the patient came shouting at my clinic, and I was taken aback. Obviously, I was into 10 plus year, 11 plus years of practice at that time, but still such kind of incidents make you understand that what is the patient's psyche in it. And then I explained the patient, and I explained it to you in the court of ruling way. There is a ruling from Supreme Court as well. Just because a parallel line of treatment is available, it does not render the treatment A ineffective against treatment B. Both the treatment A and B means the parallel path, the manual and the rotary path. Just because that rotary is available, it does not render that. Obviously, if it was a curved canal, then obviously the preference would be a rotary one. Usually in most of the cases, but for a central incisor, not. Yes, as I said, there has nothing to do with the consent part in this. In the medical legal scenario in this. But yes, this is a thing which can happen. But these are the things which are going to save you. So remember the words risks, benefit, and options. You have to tell the benefits as well, and the risks of not doing the treatment, benefits of doing and risks of not doing, and any parallel treatment options available, and what is the best according to you, and leave the final decision to the patient. So informed means actually weighing between the risk and the benefit. If you don't do, the risk is more than 50. If you do, the benefit may be less than 50. You have to choose between the two options. And the decision making that comes when there is no risk is a simple consent. And when more information is given to the patient, it becomes an informed consent. It is a presumed consent in cases of emergency, any mishap happening outside your clinic on the road, any mishap happening, God forbid, in your clinic because of any injection or because of any reasons inside your clinic. It is an emergency condition. You will not wait for the consent, even from the patient accomplice or patient relative. You need to institute the emergency treatment to save the life of the patient ASAP. Then tacit consent. Consent expressed silently or passively by omission. The patient kept quiet when you discussed. So it means that the patient had an opportunity to forbid or refuse. Then a proxy consent. A consent when parents of child are mentally unsound or even a patient is unconscious, it is also known as surrogate decision making or a surrogate consent. So in emergency happened in a school, let's suppose, and parents guardian is not available at their workplace, consent can be obtained from the person who brings the child for treatment. For example, in this case, school teacher. This is known as loco parentis in the consent terminology. Then another form of consent is telephone consent, where the parents can't come in a city metropolitan like a Mumbai or a Delhi, where the parents are working far off and the emergency situation is there. The same has to be explained to the patient, and the one who is brought, the school teacher or any relative who is brought, he or she should be listening on the parallel line. There will be 3 lines. You're talking to the parent, but the parallel guy also listening, or it is on the speaker. Those things have to be still there. All the 4 elements: voluntary, knowledge, the competency, and decision making. Obviously, for a minor, the major makes the decision. And once the telephone consent part is over, as I said, the third party should be listening on an extension, or it should be maybe a hands-free, if because there are no landline these days available. So the parent should be told of the needed treatment, and if the parent says go ahead with the treatment, and that you can take that as consent. But once the patient comes back again, and you have to record this audio call, and when the patient comes for a follow-up, get the paperwork done on the, say, consent part, like the normal procedures you do. So it should be documented in patient record as well, and signed and countersigned by the listening third party as well. Then, as I said, a follow-up letter to the patient, and or maybe a same email. Email is admissible as a, say, defense or any kind of communication mode in the court of law. And when it comes to dental consent, so as I said, if the patient sits in a dental chair himself, it is implied that it is assumed that implied consent for a non-invasive examination has been already given. You don't need to take in consent for say a normal checkup or a normal X-ray. So any other invasive technique like say probing, any other radiographs other than normal, any blood test or diagnostic cavities, they should be taken as even a consent from the patient. They can be express oral consent as well. You do not need to take written consent for everything. So valid consent has to be there before the starting of the treatment. It should never be after, it should never be midway. And if we don't follow this, we may be liable to action both by the patient, of course, in the court, and by our professional body, the DCI or the State Dental Council. So touching a patient will also constitute a criminal offense of the battery. Battery means a criminal offense involving unlawful physical contact. It is distinct from assault. Assault is doing, say, unlawful, say, harassing someone, or say pushing someone or hitting someone, but this is something else. Then if the patient suffers any damage because of the treatment, you will fail on double counts, on negligence also, and on the basics of informed consent and record keeping as well. So what are the elements of consent? We have, there are different perspectives to see at it. एक डॉक्टर का नजरिया, एक पेशेंट का नजरिया, एक आइडियल नजरिया. There was a movie recently by, I don't remember the name. It was Siddharth and Isha in the sorry, Shatrughan's daughter in there. So they had 3 versions of that movie. One by the hero, one by the heroine, and one was the actual version. So similarly, in consent part, we have the 3 versions. A physician standard will say what a typical physician would reveal, leaving out the intricacies part, and what information is appropriate to disclose. We'll put a post and core. So if the root is not very, it is in a good condition, you will not say कि post डालने से it can fracture, it can tear off, it can shear off. This is the reasonable that we expect this thing, itni information there. Then we tell patients very little part, because otherwise the option is ऐसे अगर सब कुछ बताएंगे तो patient तो कुछ करवाएगा ही नहीं treatment. So that is the thing. Then the reasonable patient standard, that we actually need to know all, because after all it is our body, it's our teeth, and we need to know all before making a final decision, because the final autonomous choice lies in the hand of the patient. And then the third one, the say subjective standard, the actual, what the patient needs to know to make an actual say informed decision. And the standard is actually the most challenging one, as I said, because it requires tailoring information for each patient. And we will say have, अगर पेशेंट को सब कुछ बताएंगे तो कोई भी पेशेंट कोई भी ट्रीटमेंट नहीं करवाएगा. So obviously we have to maintain a balance between that. Then the degree of probability of a risk arising, the seriousness of a possible injury. For example, say nerve damage in a third molar. For example, a space infection when draining out, say a big periapical lesion. So these are the two most important aspects patient need to know before being able to consent to treatment. Tell the patient very clearly, if you get it done, there are chances 20%, 30%, 40% that ye damage ho sakta hai. But the reverse, the benefits you told, the risks, if you don't get it done, it will surely lead to this infection, this disability, this cyst formation, or whatever reasons, whatever situation is there. So then the patient needs to make a balance between that. What is there? When you throw the ball in the patient's court, the patient automatically comes with the choice. And the patient doesn't doubt you. And then the same thing has to be in black and blue, in written, of course, as I say. So the emphasis should be on the subjective standard, the ideal version. So we need to actually tell the patients their needs and priorities when providing information about this. So individual preferences also have to be taken into account when you identify his or her needs. And if the patient's questions are there, you need to ask or to say answer them about the procedure. And that is where actually we commit a mistake. In North India, it is very common. I'm not sure about the southern part of India, in Kerala. But here we say, beta mere ko ye dikhana hai. I have this problem in this tooth. Baitho. You say it. Beta iska mere ko estimate bata do. Tell me the estimate of the treatment. बैठो बैठो आंटी कोई बात नहीं कर लेंगे 5-6 बार आना पड़ेगा वो मैं कर लूंगा I'll do it. You have to come 5-6 times. We skip all the protocols totally. Medical history, allergy history, any allergy testing, any informed consent, any written work. Once you start the treatment, the consent has no value. The consent has to be before the treatment. You can't take even the consent midway. Try to understand this. So the patients have a right to know. If you're doing an anterior implant case, the patient needs to know that he'll have a occasional say loosening of the temporary. They'll have occasionally say Maryland fitted into that missing area. The patient will not have that say great kind of a smile in the intervening healing period. Of course, presuming that you are not doing an immediate implant. So these needs need to be taken into consideration. कि social life पे कितना अंतर होना है. How you need to. Some people still don't give temporaries for a crown. They forget to inform that crown आज बनना दिया, it will take manufacturing for 3 to 4 days. 3 to 4 days the patient is bearing the sensitivity. And if this sensitivity sometimes become irreversible one and turns into a root canal, God forbid, who is to blame? Of course, not the patient. Only one person is to blame, that is you. And then we start. आपने इसके साथ गर्म चाय पी होगी, आपने इसके साथ ठंडी आइसक्रीम खाई होगी. We start taking say those things into account, that the patient mistake is there. No, it is our mistake. We need to inform the patient. Of course, nip the evil in the bud, rectify the problem at the first and only. So we have a duty to explain all the relevant facts to the patient and not using a technical jargon, not using more of a technical terminology. Use simple language that the patient can understand. And consent part always begins. I am a big fan of, I've written a whole book on first consultation. So I'm a big fan of, I never start my treatments, long case never before 3 or 4 sittings, a normal case not before the second or the third sit. This is a very routine in my clinic. I don't have any insecurity of losing the patient. I believe if the patient has come from a referral mode, he's going to stay. He's going to know that I have, say, I have been chosen as one amongst the 15 or the 10 other guys in my area, the dentist I mean. So if I have been chosen as the best by the patient, I need to leave that insecurity. You can easily identify that window shopper patient easily. But the patient is not a window shopper. you really need to calm the patient first. Anxious patients are the biggest ones, are the toughest ones to tackle in the clinic. Do the first consultation, do the allergy testing, do the medical history part, do the paperwork, consent part, then start the treatment. We have this notion, patient chair पे बैठा, get some treatment, कुछ भी कर लो, get a deposit 1000, 2000, 1000, 2000, and the patient is yours for life. Ask yourself, example for you, you go to a mall, some holiday destination company is offering a gift voucher, and along with that they are saying take our membership, just pay 5000 today and the whole package is 1.5 lakh, just otherwise this package is for 2 lakhs, we are offering it for 1.5 lakh, you can block it by paying 5000 today. You get impulsive, you buy that package, come home, have a talk with your colleagues, your friend, it is a company bekar hai, this is not a good company, don't say trust your money with it. What will you do? Will you pay back the remaining 1,45,000 or you will forego that 5,000? Obviously you will do the second option. The same can happen with the patient for you. If you try to jump the bylaws, remember this thing, all the patients are Google informed these days, and you need to justify all their doubts before starting the treatment. And once you start the treatment, you need to be on the same ground. You understand, as I said, the same thing in the same sense is to be understood by both of you, so that there is no room for any kind of miscommunication. And that is where, let me now come to a very pertinent point. One of my group members asked me in the morning, sir, you say that record keeping has been your biggest, say, asset. And where does the consent part fit in? Where does the record keeping fit in the consent? Before I answer this, I'll give you an example. Let's suppose a patient comes to you with a Carious 3.6. By the look of it, you can say, of course, not bypassing the radiographic norms, but by the look of it, you know it is a perfect case of a root canal. Obviously, a simple decay just penetrated into the chamber, and you can do a good root canal out of it. And the X-ray justifies it, that you are thinking on the correct lines. And the patient say, you say, I'll do a root canal and you will be safe. The costing with the crown and this would be, let's suppose, 7 to 8,000. The patient says, affordable patient, good economy class patient, remove this tooth. Now, the question to you is, what consent will you take? You will say, sir, extraction karni hai, so we'll take consent for extraction. 6 months down the line, the patient does a malpractice suit on you and asks you that my tooth could be saved. Why didn't you save it? What defense do you have? This is where the customization of the consent form comes in. Customization is on two accounts. Number one, as per the treatment, means separate consent for extraction, root canal, prosto. For every specialty, a separate root canal. The second, customization. What do you get? What do you see as the normal consent forms? That is treatment mein ye risks hain, ye benefits hain, ye everything, all those things covered. That is, you find on the net very commonly. These are floating everywhere. People ask me for a consent form. When I tell them I don't have a fixed consent form, they laugh at me. Sir, aap dena nahi chahte. I always tell them I make a consent form every time. A customized one immediately. I have those templates ready with me, 28, 29 templates ready with me. I just fit in those templates and take a printout, and my consent form is ready in 10 minutes or so. Your commonly available consent forms on the net are the body of the consent. The top and the bottom has to be customized. Now you will ask me what? You talk to the patient that this is a salvageable tooth. Get a root canal done. The patient wants a extraction. You're taking an extraction consent. Where does your record keeping or consultation come in? Yes, you made an entry into your record book, but those entries can be manipulated later on also. 6 months down the line, you can alter your Excel file. Of course, presuming that you're maintaining digital records, which is a preference these days. So your consultation, your discussion will fit in there. Then what is the amount the patient has to pay? The treatment, say total charges are at the bottom. Then a scenario again, let me give you. The patient says, you go in for the patient decides for a root canal. Does not come after, gets first sitting, comes after 3 months. I was busy. Okay, no problem. I'll do the dressing. You do a dressing, then again disappears for 3 to 6 months. Comes again after 6 months. You are doing that same root canal for 2 years in that same amount. In that 2 years, your annual charges have revised twice. Where are those terms and conditions? That you need to get this treatment done in these much number of sittings. If you don't come back, if you don't appear, if you come after a gap, you'll be charged again. Where will that come? That will come your customized consent form. That is basically a mini record keeping for you for that patient inside, especially for those cases where the line of treatment adopted is different from the routine. The patient wanted to extract, you wanted to save. Get the discussion. A reverse scenario. Let me give you a reverse scenario example. The tooth is badly decayed. By the look of it, again, not bypassing radiographic norms, you see almost the furcation, say pulp, not the pulp polyp, but gum polyp just popping out of the furcation area. You know that it is all but almost fractured or about to fracture. The patient says, and you confirm it by the radiograph. The patient says, save this tooth. You recommend extraction in this case. You save this tooth via partial pulpectomy or a root canal, whatever, and doing a sealing via MTA, whatever you're doing. And now what consent will you take? You'll say, I'll take a consent of RCT. Let's suppose you told the patient that this tooth will not last 3 to 6 months. And the same happens. The 6th or the 7th month, the tooth fractures. The patient comes with the crown and this thing in hand. See, this is your tooth. This is the kind of work you do. They start on shouting, forgetting that they had signed the consent, or sorry, they had been told about this thing very clearly, that you are not supposed to say save this tooth. This is bound for failure. उस वक्त पेशेंट की ये चॉइस होती, जितनी देर चलता है चला दो, जब तक बचता है बचा दो. Obviously there are no half measures. You'll always do the full treatment only. So this part will come in consent top. The tooth is bound for extraction, but the patient chooses to save it for the time period we recommend, or time period as long as it survives. There is no, say, longevity offered on part of the dentist, and the patient fully understands it very well. All the doubts pertaining to this have asked by the patient have been answered vehemently. At the bottom, the cost part and the other terms and conditions of your clinic. Many people have other terms and conditions. If you don't come on time, if you're late by your appointment for 30 minutes, we'll give you another appointment. We'll not do you. Who's going to tell that? Once the patient is sitting on the chair, your everything goes haywire. You need to explain to the patient very clearly to do that. Have that faith upon the patient. Lose that insecurity of get rid of that insecurity of losing the patient. And this point also, that all the doubts of the patient have been answered. So a patient understand kiya ki nahi kiya, this is your responsibility. NAPH guidelines say the consent has to be bilingual. One English, one in the patient's local vernacular. The informed consent bylaws say the consent will be in the language the patient reads and understands. And at that point, consent is never between the doctor and the patient. It has to be a witnessed consent to be fully valid. There will be 2 signatures of witnesses. One will be the patient accomplice, one will be the doctor accomplice. Your assistant or your associate can be an accomplice, and the patient relative. The most common question I get here is, sir, many times the patient comes alone for the treatment. Who said you to start the treatment in the first sitting, unless it is an emergency? That is where I'm telling you, use that first consultation, use that area time to build up the rapport, especially for long cases, especially for high stake cases, especially for those cases where the volume or the number of the, say, money is involved in a great deal. Remember this. So you should know that the patient has a good knowledge for these are the 6 parts. Again, the parts, as I mentioned, the consent part, the purpose of the treatment. This comes in your part, consultation part. The nature of the treatment, we know what it involves. The root canal, it carries all these side effects. It can have a perforation, it can have a, say, missed canal, it can have whatever, it can have a, say, whatever, it can have a apex bypass, it can have, say, going across, whatever reason. Then the likely effects and consequences. It can result in mild pain, mild swelling, mild whatever, all those associated with all the treatment. This comes in the body, you will get it very easily. Then the risk limitations and possible side effects. These are the 3 covered in the body of the consent. Then comes your first consultation point, alternatives and how they compare. The RBOs come in again. How they compare means the risk versus the benefit. And then the cost. No consent form mentions the cost, but the customized consent form should mention the cost. So let me give you an example of the body of the consent. A root canal, endodontic therapy. This involves I authorize. Even for the photography, you have to take a consent that this where these photographs will be used. The risks, the common risks: post-operative discomfort, swelling, restricted mouth opening, failure rate of 5 to 10%, or whatever it is. You'll find the bodies everywhere on the net. The only thing you have to understand is the top and the bottom, which you have to customize. Then go on premature loss due to loosening, instrument separation, perforations, blocked root canals, calcifications, all those options. You can find it in plenty over the net. So informed consent does not happen only when the form is signed. Form sign ho gaya? No. We actually have to do a shared decision making and then shared discussion of the problems and then leave it to the patient to make a fully autonomous decision. And that can take place in one sitting or over the course of several encounters. Again, a part of shared decision making. So it should be procedure specific. That is why they need to be difficult. They need to be discrete separately. And they should avoid overly broad statements. Root canal has a good chance to succeed 100%. Never. Implants are 100% successful all over the world studies. Don't use technical data where it is not justified by the science. Then consent should be taken before the action, never after the starting. Blanket consents, as I mentioned, are not acceptable at all. So what exactly, apart from the other 6 factors I mentioned, what all needs to be mentioned? The legal name and the date of the birth. It is a very common thing in Punjab. Someone named Harpreet Singh will have a nickname Happy. So you'll write Happy. In a consent form, you don't need to write Happy. You need to write the name on the, say, legal document, the Aadhaar card, the PAN card, or whatever. You need to write that name along with the date of the birth mentioned over there. Then the legal name and the relationship to the pediatric patient, if it is a minor patient. Because the minor can't give a consent, the consent has to be with the major in that case. Then the diagnosis, then the nature and the purpose of the proposed treatment in simple language. Then again, the RBOs, the risk, benefit, and options. The other recognized against alternatives or the O's. Then a place to indicate that all the questions have been answered. The patient had this much doubt, all have been answered. Then place for signature of patient or legal guardian in case of minor. Then the dentist, the patient accomplice, and the office staff member, associate or assistant as a witness. 4 signature होंगे तो consent पूरा गिना जाएगा. Top and bottom customized, 4 signatures. Believe me or not, once 4 people have signed, the patient will think thrice before going to court. He knows it. He can make an excuse, मुझे समझ नहीं आया, साथ वाले को भी समझ नहीं आया, associate को भी समझ नहीं आया, 4 people can't lie. So he'll think twice. So document is your biggest savior. Remember this thing. And sometimes some people I've seen in colleagues, I go to many clinics. I used to go to many clinics as a, say, consultant in the early phase of my career for third molar extractions. So, and they actually use this terminology. I accept this treatment with the understanding that I will hold the doctor harmless, or I will not hold the doctor responsible for any negligence in performance of treatment. Negligence, you do or not do, is not going to be decided by you or the patient. It is going to be decided by the medical board or the court. Of course, the courts are not that competent to decide the amount of negligence or say the kind of negligence. So they referred it to the independent medical or the dental board, which decides the treatment parameters. So these terminologies are known as exculpatory terms, which are invalid in the court of law. It is like, say, bargaining with the patient that I do your treatment, you don't hold me responsible. So in a different terminology, it can be say either you agree not to sue me, so I should not be guilty of negligence, or if you are injured as a result of my negligence, I will not provide your services. So which is a wrong approach. So the patient can refuse the treatment at any time. Middle of the procedure, you're doing say root canal or doing a surgery, the patient raises a hand, sorry, I want to stop. You have to stop. The patient can refuse you anytime, but you are the fairer sex in this regard, if I may say in a lighter vein. You can't refuse the patient, even if the patient does not pay you. As per the Indian Contract Act and as per the doctor patient ethical principles, you cannot leave the patient in between. You have to complete the treatment. And yes, you can say omit to say a no to the next segment. The patient can withdraw consent at any time during the performance of the procedure. In between that, obviously people will say if a patient wants to go, they'll take a signature that yes, I am doing a lama kind of a thing, leaving against medical advice. Obviously many patients who are angry at whatever, if they had any pain or if they didn't, or they were anxious or they apprehensive or anything, they like to leave the treatment midway. That is where the treatment comes. So the patient should be, if the patient refuses to sign that I'm leaving, I don't want to sign anywhere, that the harm or the ill effects of that treatment which is not been completed should be mentioned to the patient and documented in your case record. Because you have the consent signed with you, the patient can't hold you guilty because he is the one who refused. But you can't force the treatment onto the patient. So as I gave you an example, the dentist say recommends that a root canal is needed, but the patient goes in for extraction. This entry should be made in patient's record and in your consent form as well, customizing the top part that yes, you need to do that. Believe me, it is not that difficult as you are seeing, because the bodies of consent form are available all over the net. Just document your conversation with the patient or your consultation in the top part, your treatment details, the costing part, and your terms and conditions associated with that treatment. Of course, extraction is not never done in 2 parts or 3 parts. It is done in one go only. But the root canal sometimes is done in multiple parts. Mention your terms and conditions. Mention your say for a denture, for a prosthetic work, or for any kind of whatever rules are there, because these rules will differ from my clinic to your clinic. So how can my consent form be similar to yours? How can I consult in a different manner? I consider that as my forte. Your consultation might not be a forte. Of course, this is an art which you need to develop over the years. But once you develop this art, my consultation will still be different from yours. Maybe yours is better than me in coming years. So you have to document your consultation, what you have done. And then the main thing is, do not jump beyond your skill set ambit. You're not qualified in a procedure, you don't possess the skill for that, don't go in for that. Of course, that is a topic of negligence altogether. Of negligence is a full-fledged part, which I just told you, that going beyond the skill set ambit. So once you have done every paperwork, everything, just still confirm verbally everything that the patient understands. आपको इंजेक्शन दिया जाएगा, आपके दांत में होल किया जाएगा. We'll use these instruments as a root canal, and this is the procedure just in a short way, just to confirm the same, so that the patient is actually say conversant with what you are going to do, and you need to actually answer all the doubts of the patient. So the law presumes that the doctor is in a dominating position at the start. Remember, you can refuse a patient, but at the start. Once you instituted the treatment, you started the treatment, you cannot stop the treatment midway. So the consent should be obtained after providing all the necessary information. And it is not a procedural formality. People treat it as a formality. कागज पे साइन ही है, कोई बात नहीं, कर दो. It is a legal requirement of a medical and a dental practice. Unfortunately, we are not taught of this aspect. As I told you, I didn't know the C of consent before going to National Law School. It opened all my 6 indris of my body when I went there in Bangalore. So getting a mere signature on a form is not a consent. If the patient is rushed into signing a consent without giving information, consent may be invalid despite the signature. I've given you many parameters to do that, along with the witnessed part, which is mandatory for you to do. So most of us either ignore or are ignorant of the, say, requirements of valid consent and its legal implications. Consent, people then ask me, how long is the consent valid? You did a consultation in March. Lockdown happened. The patient could not, obviously dentists were put under the scanner. The patient comes to you in September 2020. You taken a consent, you were about to start on Monday 23rd of March. Sunday 22 Janta curfew was there. So Monday 23rd of March you were supposed to start, but the lockdown happened. So you couldn't start. Is that consent valid today? That is the most common question. If there are no physical changes in the teeth to be treatment to be done, of course 6 months is a long time. Today is 23rd March or 23rd September, exactly 6 months. So if there is no physical change, if there is no change in your proposed action, if there is no change in your proposed intervention, the same consent will hold good. Consent remains valid for an indefinite period if there are no physical changes. If the tooth you were about to do an endo or a root canal has fractured partially, you need to really weigh the options of that tooth again, and thereby the consent part goes again. Since you haven't started, you can still do it. But even for those who started the treatment, let's suppose somebody started on, say, 16th of March, a week before, and a perfect endo case, but couldn't do the treatment. The patient is a senile, a senior citizen, has comorbidity, and you yourself avoided the patient, that the patient should not come to the clinic. Now that the situation is improving slightly, or at least the fear factor is going, or we are maintaining apt precautions in our clinic, most of us, the patient wants to continue the treatment, but the tooth has fractured slightly. Is that consent valid or invalid? Now it is invalid, because that was done in consideration to that. But then no patient can hold you guilty for those, say, act of God which has happened. This is like an act of God only. I'm lecturing in God's state. Kerala is God's state, known as God's country, God's own country, sorry. So again, as I said, it should be confirmed at the time of surgery and should not be taken from the patient relative. There is a very classical case of a 44-year-old female who was undergoing a gallbladder surgery. Dr. Prabha Manchanda versus, I don't remember the exact name, against the doctor. The patient name was Dr. Prabha Manchanda. So a very classical case of the 70s or the 80s. And she was a 44-year unmarried female. She was undergoing a gallbladder procedure. In between, emergency occurred, and don't know the details, can't tell you the details here, but the patient's ovaries had to be removed. And in the middle of the procedure, the patient's mother was made to sign the consent. The doctor was held guilty that the female lost his chance of motherhood. Remember, the female was 44-year-old, unmarried, and in those days, in 70s, people used to have, females used to have menopause till 58, 60. Now with the evolution, the menopause is happening in the early 40s or late 30s even itself in many cases. But in that case, a 44-year female was, the decision was upheld, and the doctor was held guilty because the consent will be taken from the patient if he is capable and knowledgeable to do that. No one can consent on the behalf of a competent adult. So consent should be free and voluntary. It should be free. It is said to be free when it is not under undue pressure or coercion, undue influence, fraud, misrepresentation, or mistake. So consent should be, again, those three words which I said will be repeated multiple times. RBOs: risks, benefits, and options. You have to disclose the patient about his condition, the prognosis, the treatment benefits, the adverse effects, the available alternatives, the risks of refusing the treatments, and the treatment cost. Many people do not mention the cost. The fear, if we documented that, we are not showing that to the income tax people. Another of my topic, finance, which I speak very fondly upon. Income tax se bachane ke liye people save this costing part. Believe me, if the patient consent is written in, the treatment cost is written in black and blue, there is no going back on that also. That becomes a valid document and the patient knows that I have signed. And even if it is a legal document or not, some people fear signatures on any document where there are witnesses as a very important thing, where they can be, because it is like a breach of a contract. It is like a doctor-patient contract, and it is against the provisions of the Indian Contract Act 1872. If somebody is say breaching that contract, he will have to bear the consequences. So people say payment पूरी नहीं आती patient की, consent में करिए, payment वैसे भी आ जाएगी. Of course, practice member also plays a role in that. Again, one of my topics apart from medical legal. But then these three are interconnected with each other. People ask me many times, why do I lecture on these three topics? I mentioned very fondly. At the end of the day, we all want to earn money, and practice member tells us to actually earn more. But in doing so, sometimes we cross on the wrong side of the law. That is where the role of medical legal ethics comes in. It tells us to not tread on that path which is wrongful, tread on the rightful path. And once you have earned money in a rightful manner, treading in the right way, if you can't earn from your own money, knowledge of finance, financial literacy, I'll be detailing. I have a lecture this weekend as well. So financial literacy is a must for everyone. So what are the consent principles? It should be procedure specific. It should not be a blanket one. The one done for diagnostic, like for a, say, periodontal probing or a biopsy sample or a, say, OPG or a, say, occlusal X-ray, it cannot be considered as a consent for therapeutic treatment. And during the surgery, as I said, is not acceptable. Blanket consent is not valid. I mentioned at the start, I authorize Dr. A, B, C to carry out this procedure in the course of my treatment. This is not valid. And I will not hold him responsible. This is not valid, absolutely. So fresh consent for a repeat procedure. Always. Just because you extracted this 3/6, you don't need a consent for 4/6. If you're extracting, let's suppose, you again need us. The wording might be similar. Exact wording of the consent might be similar. Of course, if the situation of the tooth is similar, of course, the side effects will be the same. The word 3/6 can be substituted by 4/6, but still it needs to be taken again. A freshly informed consent must be there before every surgical procedure if it is a re-exploration procedure. Witnessed consents are legally more dependable and valid in the court of law. As I said, patient is free to withdraw his consent anytime. If the patient withdraws the consent, the procedure should be stopped and recontinued if the patient agrees to do it. So consent is no defense in cases of professional negligence. If you commit a negligence, don't consider that consent will save you from that. And consent is not fixed with a good form. अच्छा सा form ले लो डॉक्टर भवदीप से या किसी से भी तो मेरा form हो जाएगा. It should always be customized. Always. It is always preferable to take the same in patient's vernacular. Always use short and simple sentences. Avoid technical terminology. So it is not ethical to impart correct and necessary, not only ethical to impart correct and necessary information, but it is also important legally. And this communication needs to be documented. So sometimes even the professional indemnity insurance will not cover for lapses in obtaining valid consent. Of course, many companies provide for loss of documents, but sometimes consent part will not be especially if it is a case which is a high stake case, and they might consider it as an intentional assault. So besides the clinical skills, you need to have these 5 things: communication, the first consultation, the documentation, putting it in black and blue, then the communication of documentation, informed consent, then documentation of communication, your record keeping, then preservation of documentation, preservation of records. These 5 things need to be maintained purely. Why do patients sue their dentists? Wrong and unpleasant outcomes, being negligent during treatment, wrong tooth treatment, and consent related issues. Believe me, record keeping and consent are the biggest, say, banes of any terminology. And on case sheet and records, or say informed consent, poor record is poor defense, no record is no defense. If we are not maintaining any records, obviously we are not doing any good to ourselves. So we have to remember that in court of law, the focus is on treatment method formulation rather than the treatment outcome alone. So coming to the end, just to give you a summary of this. So I'll be taking up all the queries, all those posted in that. I'll be unmuting all of you once I just finish in just a couple of minutes. So dentists have to use their skill and knowledge, and we have to give due consideration to patients' needs as well, their desires. We have to be honest and trustworthy in their dealings with the people. We are not doing a perfect science, but the standard of care, again, the component of negligence only, needs to be adhered to very, say, commonly. And treatment below the standard of care is considered negligent and can become ground for malpractice suits. So most common malpractice suits involve failure to diagnose. We are in a hurry. Failure to treat. We don't treat because the patient hasn't paid. A timely reference. We jump beyond our skill set, and then involves general dentists to treat beyond their level of competence. Remember, these are the banes of treatment which we need to actually take care of. So thank you so much. A couple of announcements before I stop my share and take up the queries, whatever they are. So this is my YouTube channel. Dr. Baiju mentioned about it. So if you forget the channel link, all my social media presence is by my name only, Dr. Bhavdeep, without any name underscore. So go to YouTube. There are more than 114 videos. So there are short videos, there are webinars, there are, say, lectures, there are full day lectures also uploaded in over there. So do subscribe, and I do keep on uploading these things over there. So this is my email and website and contact if you need to get in touch with me in any way. So I run a WhatsApp group as well on practice management and finance. So Dr. Baiju is a member of it since long. So I plan to keep it till 5, but now the 6th one is temporary one is created because people keep on leaving 1 or 2 another day. So I just keep on transporting people from T to the main groups. So I have a paid group as well. Dr. Baiju is a member of both. So even one of the paid group members joined today when it is from January to December. So whatever money we collect goes to my NGO that I run along with my friend CFC, Can Fight Cancer. So if you want to become a part of it, you are most welcome. So the upcoming sessions for me, for my paid group are this Friday about the new clinic guidelines, never opening a new clinic in a rush, taking the first step cautiously. The people, even who have opened up or are on the phase of opening up, this happens on Friday, same time. Saturday, 7:30, the basics part 4, financial planning. It is with the Kolkata study group, the dentalpreneurs. So these are the ones. And then another one, September end on Wednesday, 30th. Stress management for the dentist, simple and easy way, other than meditation or other aspects which we can handle. So one thing I always appreciate at the end of my presentation is please send your valuable feedback either on the WhatsApp group or on your, say, Facebook page or in the chat box. Bookies and brickbats both would be welcome in equal measure. So thank you so much once again, Ide Kodangalur. So I stop my share for questions, and I'll be taking them all. Just let me change the settings so that you can unmute yourselves. Okay. Let me take up the ones which are already there in the chat. Dr. Mittal says, whether video recording of consultation is essential or not. It depends upon you, Dr. Mittal. You can go in for a video recording, but the patient has to be informed that the video recording is to be done before, and the patient's permission has to be there. Don't need a written permission. It can be a verbal permission or say express consent as well. So thank you. Thank you. So any other queries, you can unmute yourself one by one and please go on asking whatever you can. How to take consent for consultant orthodontist? Who will sign, consultant or clinic owner? Say, this is a part again which I cover in negligence part. You have to remember the patient walked into your clinic. Whosoever signs the consent, you or the associate or the consultant, the final responsibility is yours under the head of vicarious responsibility. If any mishap happens to the patient, or if any say grudges of the patient are there, it has to be handled by you only, because the associate, even if the associate or the say consultant or the visiting dentist signs, the blame is onto you, not to the consultant. Okay. You can unmute yourself and ask queries if there are any.
Sir,
Yes, Dr. Arshada.
so what if sometimes the patient leaves the treatment midway, he retracts his consent, and maybe he's upset or something, he refuses to sign on the form stating that he has opted out of the treatment, and he comes back later after some time saying you discontinued the treatment or something like that. So what do we do in that case?
See, your record keeping will come handy in that. These kind of things rarely happen because, as I said, you mentioned it very clearly, your terms and conditions and your consent signing. I presume that you have taken the consent. It is a witness consent at the start, and the patient, because of any reason, apprehension, anxiousness, or any maybe whatever reason, illogical one sometimes, patient opts out and discontinues the treatment. And your terms and conditions are mentioned in there. If you don't turn up, because your record keeping will come in handy over there, your patient entries are there. If you're allotting a serial number to your patient every day, you will obviously, you can't entertain one patient in that to say get rid of all those numbers. Those numbers will come in handy where the serial numbers which you have allotted, that can be your savior. But obviously one patient who has signed along with the witness, there are 4 signatures, he will think thrice, not even twice, he'll think thrice before making any kind of a allegation on you, because he knows I have signed it and he is responsible equally for his act. And this is a very, very rare case scenario that the patient will blame you. This can happen that the patient comes back to you, feels apologetic and wants to continue the treatment. There you can make adjustments. But a patient coming back to you and blaming you, where especially if you have done the signature part, is a very, very rare thing, which is not possible usually. Any more queries? All clear or nothing clear?
It's all clear.
I've tried to say summarize all the one-day content into this 1 hour and 15 minutes. I tried my best to give you all the common principles. Of course, there is an overlap with negligence, also overlap with other principles also, and these things actually again take a lot of time. So
So,
yes, Dr. Bhavni.
so we need to take consent for each and every procedure, like even the scaling, polishing, or the smallest procedures, like you mentioned for RPD.
See, if the consultation, the consultation plays a very important role in this. The RPD I mentioned because the background was the patient was well off. You need to have all your eye, ears, and say all those sensory organs open up. You know that the patient can afford it. He's still opting for a RPD. That is a classical case where the problems can arise. Learn to visualize, learn to foresee things. These are the things they can create a problem. But in doing this, you don't need to cross the line to be finicky as such. This happens with most of the people. They try to overthink such things. Agar ye ho gaya to, yes, things are possible, but don't overthink. Number one. Number two, the scaling patient. I always say wherever there is bleeding involved, do take a written consent. But if the patient is a generalized one, healthy one, a grade 1 calculus kind of a thing, there is no comorbidity associated, you can go with the express oral consent as well. You don't foresee any kind of mobility or any kind of bleeding as well, much of it, if I may say so. You can go with the oral consent. But if there is a senile patient, a comorbid patient, or if there are expected some teeth to turn, say, mobility wise, or say root exposures or sensitivity happening, you really need to take a written one mentioning all the RBOs. Obviously, there is no O for scaling as such.
So, but in cases where after scaling periodontal surgery or deep gingival curettage is needed, then those options should be mentioned in the.
Those are already those are already the surgical ones. Surgical procedures always take a consent. Will always need a consent. You can't proceed in the surgical things without consent. We are talking about the routine procedures.
Yeah.
Surgical, you don't proceed without consent. Not even oral. You need to have written, of course.
So now in cases like lower anteriors where there's so much of calculus and
If you can
later
foresee,
on,
if you can foresee a lot of bleeding, if you can foresee sensitivity, lot of it, if you can foresee mobility, take a radiographic thing, diagnostic thing before. If you say expect that these things are going to happen, do take a written consent. Mentioning all the things that some amount, let the patient make a decision that yes, a mobility can be expected or a grade 2 mobility can be expected. Then again, you are the best judge to decide it. But tell the patient along with that, and that should be written, that if you don't get it done, the grade 2 will turn into grade 3 or 4. That has to be written into it. That is the way you actually, that is the only way you can overcome, say, outweigh the risk part. The risk of mobility can be weighed against, if you don't get it done, grade 3, grade 4 can happen. I explain it a very common, simple language in North India. If somebody detests against any kind of treatment in lower anterior especially, I have a demographic chart which has a very small bony reference into this. मैं उसको ये बोलता हूँ, ये इस दांत की लेफ्ट हड्डी दूसरे दांत की राइट हड्डी है, इनकी दीवार कॉमन है, सांझी दीवार है, अगर उसकी दीवार जाती है तो इसकी भी जाती है. So one teeth will mean you're actually say losing out on or making 3 teeth more mobile if you're not doing it. इंडिया में नेगेटिव चीजें जल्दी समझ आती हैं. And it is not that you have to actually make the patient fearful. You have to tell the exact truth, which you know it is truth. If you don't treat the grade 2, it will turn into grade 3 and 4, eventually losing to the loss of tooth and sometimes loss of 4 teeth, because the 4 teeth are interconnected with a very thin interradicular bone, interdental interseptal bone between them. You need to understand that. Just convey to the patient in a common language. And if the patient still says, I don't want to go in for it, respect the patient decision. No harm in that. Don't make a kaddu like mu, I always say.
and full mouth extraction case, there also we need to mention all the details, no? Like
Full mouth extraction cases, yes, you can take a common consent, but if there is a third molar involved, or if there is a, say, any anatomical variation involved where you can see that any extraction can cause any benefit or any problem, then you need to take a separate consent for that. Otherwise, a normal consent mentioning all the teeth number in one single consent. Again, when you start prosto, the different consent part.
and even the teeth which can be saved, like root canal to be done, then the separate root canal consent
Yes,
for those.
if you're using them for overdenture or
Yeah.
using for any other purpose, you need to mention that very clearly.
Yes.
See, the first part in this is usually extraction. The root canals follow later, because root canals or overdentures we try to do at that time when we are close to the prosthetic stage. We usually do the extraction part first.
Yes.
So what you can do is you can put in your consultation part at the top of the extraction consent only, and mention a word in at the bottom that the prosthetic and the endo and the prosthetic consent will follow. The patient has been detailed about it, that as well, in the same consultation like this. You don't need to mention the top again in those. That can be covered in over here. And just a one line insert at the bottom of that extraction consent, it can be included in that only. Get my point?
Yes. Thank you.
Let me just check. For how much time the same signed consent should be preserved? See, all the medical record keeping, the thing is in negligence, we discuss this very commonly. There is a, say, limitation period in courts. Limitation is period that the patient will go to the court and file a case against you. That period, according to the Indian law, is 2 years. But sometimes, just as COVID there is scenarios there, or any other, say, even a female respondent, petitioner is there, or the judge is in a good mood, he can allow a condonation of delay, can be delayed, and that is usually up to 1 year that is taken. So to be on the safer side, we all say that record keeping is to be there for 2 plus 1 is equal to 3 years for all the record keeping, and for all again consent is a part of your record keeping only. For the minors, the record keeping or the consent is to be there from the age you have taken till he or she turns major. So if the kid is 5-year-old, you have to retain that record for 13 years. For a major, 2 plus 1, 3 years.
And for pediatric patient, we need to take signature from father and mother both.
See, the pediatric patient can't sign. The guardian will sign on the behalf of the patient. And the second witness would be the mother usually. The father and the mother both will have to sign. Anyone can be the, say, patient, or on behalf of patient, the guardian, or it can be, say, any other guardian appointed by court as well if the parents are not there by chance. So any more queries?
Sir, I
Yes, Dr.
Why,
Harsh.
sir?
So that means in almost every patient, the consent has to be customized, right? So, like, how do we go about it? In almost every patient, there will be varying conditions and varying treatment options or varying needs of the patient. And so, how do we go about it? Like, there can't be a same consent form in the clinic kept, like that. How do we go about
The
it?
topic was importance of customized consent form. Topic of today was customized consent form.
Yes.
It can't be same. It really can't be same. I'm glad you brought this up, but that is the bottom line. That is the thing I have been saying the whole 1 hour and 15 minutes. You summarize it in one line. The parents have varying degrees of presentation of cases. This is the thing. You have to actually go about it. So if the 5 fingers can't be same, how can the consent form be same? I mentioned it in the presentation itself that Dr. Bhavdeep's consultation will be different from yours, and your consultation will be different from mine, and your parents will be different from your mine as well. So how can it be same? So the bottom line is to treat less, spend more time with the patient. It goes back to my practice management thing, identifying the needs and the, say, wants of the patient. Get to know more about the patient, the communication part. Understand the patient's, say, desires, what he wants. There might be a hidden desire. He might have come for a, say, 1/6 or a 2/6, but he actually might be having a, say, inhibition about smiling openly because the central incisor might be crooked, might be broken, might be discolored, might be anything else, might be, say, shady. So it can be something else. So this is the way. What I do in a customized consent form training is that I say they're not more than 28 to 29 templates. They are the preform template. The patient presented with this condition, patient presented with this condition, we option for this. There will be very few variations. I have those things ready with me in my templates. I just copy and paste at the requisite consent form. The terms and conditions are already there for different procedures. For endo, they are separate. For dentures, they are separate, which are applicable in my clinic, again, not in your clinic. So then the treatment part, the costing part, we mentioned the total cost over there. The breakup, we mentioned, I don't mention the breakup over there. And I mentioned that one line, the breakup, if desired by the patient, can be according to, can be given to him separately on that separate form. मैं उसमें डिटेलिंग नहीं करता हूँ. Let's suppose a root canal 2000, crown at 4000. I don't do that. I do the total part, and I mention one line covering everything. That if the patient demands, that separate detail can be given in a summarized form if the patient desires so. So that you can simplify your consent form as well. it needs not to be too long. The consent form can ideally be 2 to 3 pages very easily. But the main thing is that you have to read it out to the patient as well, and let the patient understand or know it that he or she has understood it well. Then only he is going to sign. I told you many people are very finicky about signatures. Even on a plain paper, they will not mention it. So spend time with the patient, especially for high stake cases where multiple treatment options are involved. You have to do a few root canals, you have to do extractions, you have to do a bridge work, you have to do cleaning, you have to do restorations. You have 5 different specialties separately. So you need to take because I follow the way separately. I do all extractions in one frame, not in one setting, but in one frame. Then I start with all endos. Then I start with all maybe then the scaling part or the profile access, then the endo, and then the say core buildup or the restoration, and then the bridge work. If the patient is not an implant patient, this is the scenario for multiple. I call that also full mouth work because I've done so many. I've done thousands of those kind of full mouth cases, not full mouth rehab, I may say, but the full mouth cases where actually the treatment planning and the sequence becomes a great deal importance. You need to spend a real good time in that because the one condition is there very importantly that the patient needs to know actually that the needs to have the adaptability that you should be at least using one side at a time. एक साइड से बेचारा खाता रहे ना, दूसरी साइड कर दोनों साइड कर दोगे तो फिर खाएगा कैसे? Lot of planning goes into that. You really need to spend time on your dashboard or your say on your board so that you can actually decide what is best for the patient and then convey the same. You have to formulate a plan here, write over it, sleep over it, write down on the paper, then sleep over it. Then once you're sure, convey to the patient. And once the patient is convinced, then we start with the treatment. That is the sequence I follow actually. Remember who or she he or she has to pay you 50,000 1 lakh rupees. He will not be very kind on you if you don't follow a proper protocol. And this becomes a part of internal marketing as well. That yes, the doctor is very sure of himself. He's planned the things. He conveyed me the things. He's done the proper paperwork. He's done the proper precautions. He's given me the proper instructions. And here we go. And I am in sync with it. We actually understand the same thing in the same sense. The bottom line of that. If you joined at the start, this was the line I mentioned in the beginning.
Sir,
Importance of second consultation.
Yes, yes. Yes, Dr. Bhavna, you were saying.
सर ऑर्थो के लिए भी लेना है?
किसके लिए? ऑर्थो के लिए क्यों नहीं लेना है? सब स्पेशलिटीज के लिए होता है कंसेंट. ओके, लेट मी जस्ट.
कभी लिया नहीं.
कोई बात नहीं, बहुत लोग बहुत चीजों के लिए नहीं लेते हैं, बहुत लोग सारी चीजों के लिए नहीं लेते हैं. स्टार्ट इट टुडे. जब जागो तब सवेरा. So, sir, the patient did not. Sorry, I'm just taking the questions from the chat box. Sir, the patient did not disclose the systemic conditions and drugs taking, and unfortunately, some drug interactions happened. Will the dentist be sued for that systemic conditions? See, once you take the consent part, I mentioned the first consultation. The first consultation will not only mention the treatment planning; it will mention the medical history as well. That yes, patient was asked about the medical history. The patient reported clearly it was fine. Remember, the patient is signing on that. If the patient is signing on that and you've taken the history and he's read it, you can't be sued for that. You can be sure. But if you're not taking the history or you're not taking the consent or not doing either of the two, you are possible to do that. You are possible to fall into that. So consent should be in the language that the patient understands, right? Yes. Should it be recorded in both English and local language? I mentioned it in the presentation. The NABH standards or guidelines mention that the consent has to be in 2 languages. It has to be bilingual, English and the language patient understands. If you have to choose one language, that I'll take consent in one language, it has to be in the local vernacular, whatever the patient is comfortable with. If the patient is illiterate one, you get a signature. Say, मेरे को तो समझ नहीं इन्होंने किस पे signature करवा ली है. That is where you actually falter. If the patient asks for a copy of the same form for his record keeping, should we give? Yes, we are liable to provide any documents to the patient within 72 hours. These are not 72 working hours, which are approximately 9 working days, excluding the Sundays. It is 72 hours, means 3 days you have to perform. You have to say provide all the documents desired by the patient whatever the patient wants, and as per law, you can charge for the Xerox as well. Of course, it will be a petty amount only, but if you want, you can charge for the Xerox as well. The patient has full right to not the originals, but the Xerox. The original records belong to the dentist. For multiple treatments in a single appointment, for example, scaling and restoration in a single appointment, should consent be taken separately? I believe paper work should be accomplished in a sitting before starting the treatment in the next sitting. That is my way of doing it, especially if you're doing multiple things. If you're doing a single thing, say a normal healthy patient you want to do, or in a comorbid patient you want to do a scaling, I have those templates ready. I just fit in and get the signatures done. If the patient is not coming with a relative, then I don't start the treatment, because the consents in my clinic have to be witnessed very clearly. They can't be with a simple signature, single signatures as such, because that gives me more authority over, or more control over, my consent form. Yes, Dr. Bhavna, you can ask now.
So in case the patient and patient accomplice both don't understand English or they are illiterate, then can we explain what is written and then can we obtain the sign?
But then again, it has to be in a language the patient understands. The
And
return
then
will be also in the same language, not in the English. What you said, you have to do. You have to explain to the patient in that language, but then that language is to be written only, not in the English.
or else we can ask the patient to bring someone like their kids who are like know English at least.
If the kids are major, fine. If the kids are minor, then it will be a problem.
So because in local vernacular like language, we don't know
Yes,
all
yes,
the terms.
it is difficult to say understand those things. But yes, and some things are taken wrongly by many patients as well, if we talk in that sense. So yes, if that will be a better one.
Thank you.
Anything else, or we wind up?
Sir, we will.
Okay, Dr. Baiju, all yours.
Dr. Plato.
Okay.
A lot of
Babaji sir, it is in a single word. It was a wonderful presentation. Very informative. I think we can avoid a lot of tensions, and I think we can more be safer side while we have practice in all the specialties. I think this time, I think when we have conducted few webinars in these days, we got a lot of questions. I think all were listening very well because many were muted their camera. So we used to have a doubt that whether they are attending or not. But today I am very happy that all were listening, and there are a lot of questions also. I wish we were very thankful to sir for the sir's acceptance for our presentation for webinar. I hope we can later can have a live presentation in our branch, and we advance invite you, sir. And we were very thankful and happy for you. And I will also thank all the participants for their lively interactions with the questions also. Thank you, sir. Thanks once again. Over to Baji, sir. Okay.
Thank you, Baji, sir.
Once again, thank you, sir.
Okay, please do put in your feedback in the respective groups wherever you are, or on the Facebook or wherever you can. Everything would be acceptable. So thank you so much for being a patient audience. Again, the
all
try
the
was
wishes for sir's future.
Thank you so much. Okay, take care. Goodbye. Good night.
Fine. Sure.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Baji, sir.